Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. Bismillah. So I finally made it back today. Usually when I say I'll be back, it never really happens. So I came back. Yay. Anyhow. Okay, so there was a range of topics I wanted to talk about today. So I covered the last one, which is about the emphasis of if you're a good person, good things will happen to you. Okay, you might even come across some things that are tests for you, but if bad things happen to you, you really kind of have to rethink that and reanalyze yourself. I can't stress it enough to speak about this, because I think I have spoken about it in various videos. The emphasis about questioning yourselves and kind of rethinking, okay, what if you really are maybe someone who can be a bad person, you haven't really realized it yet, or you are doing bad deeds rather. Okay, so that was what the last video was about, and thinking that what if you are a bad person and you are doing bad things, but it hasn't really hit you yet, and hopefully that realization wakes you up that you could be a bad person, and you start to think about life, and you thus start to probably change for the better, right? It's a process. Hopefully this process happens really quickly. Anyhow, now we're going to talk about, I get various questions all the time. Oh my god, I get questions every day. Just this morning I was asked, what was I asked? I forgot what I was asked. Anyways, we'll just stick to what this broadcast is going to be about. And oh my goodness, anytime I'm trying to make a video, this always happens to me. I think this is the most oft-repeated verse of mine. So this always happens to me anytime I'm trying to make a video. If I make a video about anything else, or if I'm talking about anything else, my throat never, bothers me. Anyhow. Okay. And by the way, I was also it's really weird. I was kind of questioned this as a thought in my brains, and it came to me, and it was like, stop doing videos, because what's the point? What's the point of making videos for other people when you can just be or thinking about doing something for other people, including yourself, when these people would never do that for you, and they wouldn't be thinking about you on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah. Like, you could just be spending this time earning good deeds for yourself and doing things for yourself. And it's a thought that was provoked by the shaytaniyat, whatever, that's over my qalb, I guess, as with everyone else. And I think of it in this manner. I think, what would Jannah be like if one enters Jannah and there's no one in it? No one in it. So you think about that, and you think, you can't save anybody. We know that very well. And we also know that there's nothing we can do on our own to pull them out of that mess unless they get out of it themselves. You can't guide anyone. You can't change anyone. You understand? You can only kind of put whatever guidance was given to you out there, and if they want to take it, they take it. If they don't, they don't. But that's exactly why I can just assume, to the best of my knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made a pair or a partner for Adam salam, and he made a pair and a partner because what would it be like to be only one of you in Jannah? You understand? But sometimes it can be much of a big dispute too, right? Be a little bit of a problem there, So if you're gonna, yes, of course, you should most certainly, or each of us should most certainly worry about ourselves. But more importantly, I think we do this as in share the guidance, because we would want somebody to do that for us. If we were lost, if I was lost, I would want someone to do that for me. And I would want someone to sometimes give me a reminder, or if they can't give me a constant reminder, somebody to tell me, wake up, you know? Imagine I was completely lost for the rest of my life, and, you know, I end up in Jahannam, regardless of that, if that is the place that I will be going to, regardless of that, right? I'm saying, what if I do end up in Jahannam? And there was somebody that was very close to me that I knew, or if it wasn't close to me, or even somebody from far apart. Let's just take the example of somebody close to me, and I really wonder, because I have eternity to wonder at that point, right? I really wonder, why didn't somebody come and tell me something? You know, or why didn't the person that was close to me remind me or invite me to the goodness, invite me to Allah? Like, this is a question you knew. It is a question about eternity, about Akhirah. This thing is never going to end. So, the eternity and everlasting life in Jannah, and the creator of the heavens and the earth, where he lives, right? Paradise, that's for eternity. But then again, Jahannam is for eternity as well. Once you're in there, the word is dakhila, you're permanent. So it's like, if you knew that this was going to be a permanent place, why didn't somebody who is a believer come out and reach out to me and tell me, Emmy, you know, sorry, you're you're heading down the wrong path, you know, like you're going to a place where there is a place of no return. So I would have questioned that myself. And thought, you know, I knew somebody that was going to Jannah, or I knew somebody that ended up in Jannah, but they didn't tell me anything about it. Not only did they not tell me about it, they never made that effort to do anything for me as well. So how would that constitute as a good person to me in general? And how would that constitute as somebody who's doing, what's it called, a dhikr for Allah, to help other people in goodness? You understand? So I thought about that thing, and of course, I literally took that thought out of my head for me to even stop, because at the end of the day, I'm just saying, if I were to go to Jannah, I wouldn't want to be alone. I have to have somebody that, or I want to know somebody that was amongst the people that, that I lived with here in this dunya, that is there and happy and gonna be just fine with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And whether that's for the parents, or that's for the family, or the friends, or the acquaintances, or anyone in this dunya, I'd like to see somebody out there that made it. You understand? And that's why I'm here, and I must disregard these type of thoughts, whether there's any outcome of it or not, whether someone, kind of reflects or not. Hey, it's on you, right? Anyhow, so the question I was asked was, a couple of days ago, it wasn't a question, sorry, it was a comment. I'm not going to talk about the question that I had this morning that I received in a series of questions. A couple of days ago, I was sitting down and we were discussing in faith and Islam and everything, and I heard something that's very familiar to me, because that's something I had thought about at one point too. And this is what the individual had said. Allah knew everything. Allah knew everything. He knew that human beings, he knew the future of everything. He knew Iblis was going to do that. Okay. He knew that he was going to create Adam, right? Peace be upon him. He knew that his wife was going to be created. He knew that Shaitan would tempt them with a tree, and then obviously with their own inclinations they would be tempted, and this would happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pretty much could have stopped everything, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't stop it. And on top of that, all these people are going to end up going to Jahannam, right? All these people are going to end up going to Jahannam. Allah could have prevented that. I mean, there was a whole bunch of commentaries that one could think of, like Allah could have, immediately thrown out Iblis after he had done that. You understand? and he could have not given him any respite at all whatsoever, not even to challenge humanity. He could have done all of these things. So it's kind of like, long story short, the person was saying, well, maybe this is just all Allah's game, he's just playing a game and stuff like that with people. So this is something that I thought about too many years ago. I used to think the same thing. I used to be like, maybe God's just playing a game, like we're just all Sims, characters and everything like that. But the unfortunate part about it is that God is saying that, we're going to go to Jahannam. So then I thought to myself, I said, how can you think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all in that type of a manner? Or that he knew everything. Oh yeah, and then on top of that, even though he knew everything, that humans were going to, they were going to mess up, and that's it, they were going to end up in Jahannam. How can you say that about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and for the good doers is only goodness? He only rewards people who do good. So how can someone who's so merciful in always giving, for example, if you do one good thing, you're talking about the same creator of the heavens and earth that's giving you 10 things in return in goodness. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 10. So you're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's giving you 10 in reward of your goodness. Not only 10 times the reward, but it could be 7 times the reward, in whichever manner it is in the Quran, right? There's a few examples. So how can we say that about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is giving us 10 times the reward in goodness? He's so merciful. He has so much goodness in him. How can you think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can even play a game with us and risk all of us to go to Jahannam? So when you read it again, and you read it again, and you read it again, and you keep coming back to the Quran, and you keep reflecting, and when you reflect upon that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give you 10 times instead of 1 time in a reward, he's giving you 10 times. You really got to think about it. Is it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's playing a game? Is it really? Or is it just mankind that is just going towards their own inclination? Like as in us, we're the ones that are choosing it. So, here's an example of that. Iblis, right? Again, another one of those videos that I have watched. Obviously, but this is extracting off of the truth. The ultimate truth is that Iblis didn't prostrate or do sujood. Whichever type of sujood that was commanded upon everyone, like the malaikas and everyone in heaven, to do sujood to the first man that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had created. Now he didn't do it, right? There are a number of things to think about it in there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam from with his own bare hands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave a portion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's spirit to Adam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also even taught the Quran himself to Adam, and also the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this much to Adam alayhi salam, right? And just with that, right, Iblis couldn't handle that. And so Iblis didn't prostrate. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked, obviously, he said, why didn't you prostrate? So he said, yeah, but I'm created out of this. So this was his logic, his logical reasoning, Iblis's logical reasoning, that, oh, I'm better, right? But then in the second part, we understand that, oh, you are the one that, made me do it in the first place, so it's your fault. Like, why would you ask me to do such? So Iblis goes on to blame God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it's because of you. Had you not asked me to do this, had you not asked me to do sujood, I would have still been in the same state that I was in. So first we see Iblis blaming Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, astaghfirullah. What is it called? Astaghfirullah. And then we later on go on to think about mankind as well. And we started to think, and you start to think again, mankind also has a tendency to do the same thing. He will want to go ahead and blame someone else, maybe even God. This is just in nature of everything that is imperfect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. He created us perfectly, but imperfect as in us in general. Humans and jinns as well. Like our thought process is imperfect from where? Because we are thinking imperfectly. Our thought process, we are thinking imperfectly. How are we thinking imperfectly? We don't want to live up to obeying one. And obeying what? Obeying only things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us is only and only for our goodness. It's only good for us. It doesn't benefit him. It doesn't benefit him. And in the second part, to go ahead and blame anything else but ourselves. Terrible. So then I was asked, what is sorry. Okay, so why do we alright, fine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to worship him too, then why the free will and the whole 9 yards. Okay. Free will is something we ask for. And if you don't want to remember that we had asked for free will, or if you can't remember that, or if you want to question that, forget about that portion. Forget about that portion of trying to answer the whole free will part. Let's just think about what is worship. To worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is firstly to read. Okay? It's in what is that? Isaiah. It's in Songs of Solomon. Okay? It's in the Quran. It's also in the Vedas, of course, right? So throughout history we see that there was a final messenger to come. He will have the last criterion of the creator of the heavens and the earth. And he had told the humanity at that time, and for the later of the whole of humanity, that God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, Allah, wanted us to read. That was the first thing we were commanded to do. He was commanded to do, and we were also commanded to do. Now, if we read and we obey by reading, ultimately, we'll know everything else that we have to do. We'll know that we'll have to prostrate. We'll know that we have to do good deeds. But majority of the Quran really is good recommendations. Like, for example, when the people wanted to eat something other than what the earth grows, which is vegetation and, fruits and all that other stuff, right? Whatever the earth itself grows, they wanted to have something else. It could have been perhaps, let's just say, cattle or livestock, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed them to have that, but then also gave them boundaries. Okay, don't eat swine, like pig, right? Because so and so. So he gave us the best and best and best of all examples in terms of best recommendations. But even if we wanted to have meat, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran about meat too? He says that the freshest meat that you can have is fish. Now, why is it fish? Okay. Why is the freshest meat that you can have fish? Well, the reason why I believe it's amongst the freshest meat is because what? Guess what it's always having? It's having water. It lives in water. It drinks water. It eats in water. It's always in purity. Majority of the times it's in purity. Now, I don't want to think about fish feces. Sorry. I don't want to think about that. And fish baby making. I don't want to think about that. But I'm just saying, majority in realistic aspects, it's always having water. You understand? The freshest meat would be fish, technically, if you really think about it. Okay. And if you also open up a grilled salmon, maybe, or grilled fish, put that on the grill, right? And then put another piece of meat in it. Cut it open. Which one will look fresher to you? The meat of the fish. In most chances, the meat of the fish will always look fresher, healthier, unless it's a bad fish, okay? So anyways, I mean, there's various reasons for the fish being the freshest, okay, of meat, but that's what we recommended. So again, we see this as a recommendation. The freshest meat that you can have is fish. It's a recommendation. So, okay, so let's just say, all right, fine, we see good recommendations, and by reading the Quran and understanding it, you're also going to be able to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that which is in it. Obeying in what? Being grateful towards and doing sujood. So that's a part of the obey and prostration part. But for the remainder of the Quran, and of course putting the good deeds aside as well, we'll see recommendations and recommendations, right? I'm oft repeating myself, sorry. And a good example of that would be usury, interest. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to avoid interest. Do not take it upon you to be of those whom, just in my own words, to take or to give or to be in interest. What does that mean? All right. Credit cards. Loans. Okay. Wait. Everybody has credit cards, though. Everybody has loans, though. Who is that putting under immense stress? Who is that putting under immense stress? You. How? I'll explain. Okay, I'll explain. So, what is the very first 1 to 2 chapters of the Quran tell you? It says, and of those whom spend out of what we have given. And those whom spend out of what we have given. When you are taking out, for example, a credit card, you are asking for beyond of what is given to you. And thus, that has interest. Even if you're taking out a 0% interest card, suppose, say, maybe there could be for example, from a lot of those times when you take out a 0% interest card, you might actually find out that exists later on in life. By the time you've already racked up like $20,000 in credit card bills, right? You'll end up taking out the 0% interest credit card, and then you'll wire it, like bank transfer to that $20,000 onto whatever limited portion they give you, onto that $1,500 or $500, whatever credit card limit it is that they have, right? And even in that, there's a fee if you want to bank transfer it, right? So that $20,000 that you took out from the credit card company has a certain percentage of interest that will take you a majority of 7 to 15 years to probably pay off, because you keep racking it up. Your credit keeps on getting better, and you keep having more of an exceeding amount that you're able to expend, and they don't care. Your interest fees are going up too, and your principals are being paid next to nothing. Next to nothing. And I'll give you a better example of this. Even a house loan, even a house loan, okay, there has to be some sort of percentage on it, right? And you take out a house loan, okay, from the bank, what happens? You might have a, I don't know, $180,000 house that you bought or something, or a $380,000 house, whatever it is. We'll just take a small minimal number, right? So you take out a $180,000 house loan. By the time 12, 13, 14, 15 years, 12 years or over 13 years, 14, whatever. Over a decade is over, you've already probably paid 200 something $1,000 in interest. Just interest. That money is gone. Your $200,000 is gone. How much money did you pay for the house, that $180,000 house, for it to belong to you? Probably the principal money is only up to $50,000 to $70,000 maybe. That's it. And the house still doesn't belong to you. You still have another 15, 18 years to pay off, which means it'll take you 30 years collectively to pay off this house which you took out a loan for. Whereas you could have just waited 15 years or 10 years or 5 years or even 2 years. 2 years. 3 years. Okay, 5 years, maybe 7 years, right? Waited patiently to collect that money, as if you're paying already for mortgage, right? To collect that money and to gone off, waited like 7 years, right? 7 years, and then bought a house. And then you would have been able to pay for it in what? Full. Or half. Or enough for the bank to give you this house when you're able to cash deposit it. That amount of money. Just because you pulled out a bank loan, now you're stuck with paying pennies in principal. And what happens is that interest racks up so much that all of your money, all that hard-earned money, is gone. It's gone. It's not coming back. It's going into the bank's pocket. You understand? That's interest. That's usury for you. Even the student loan. Okay? You might take out $20,000. You might take out, you might take out $20,000. You might take out $100,000. And by the time you're done with that, oh man, you're spending freaking another decade or more. 2 decades paying off that student loan. 15 years paying off that student loan. Did you really want to see yourself go through your life like that? Having to worry about paying off debts. And if you don't, oh my God, your credit is going to screw up and things of that sort. And, or if you don't pull something out in credit, and if you don't pull something out in, you won't have good credit. Good credit with who? Good credit with the same people that want to go ahead and rob you? They want you to spend a whole entire lifetime or half a lifetime making money for them, and they don't have to do nothing but just give you that money? Instead, when you could be working towards saving that money, and with time, you actually could earn it on your own without having to take out more than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given you. Spend from what you have been given. Spend from what you have given. And I know that people's parents can relate to this, or even people in America, at least. Majority of the people in America, they are in debt. In debt. In loans. In debt. Loans, debt, loans. Loans, debt. I don't know about the rest of the world. But is that really the type of life you want to lead? where even after paying all that money, nothing really practically belongs to you? Well, I don't think so. I don't think so. If you want to live in this life and you want to live freely, usury interest is one of the most terrible things that you can have. Like, or in terms of a credit card, you don't need a credit card. You don't need a credit card. What you can do is, if you still need to live in your surroundings and your society and everything like that, spend from what you have, get a bank card. Get a bank card. You need to make a purchase that acquires some sort of, card number. Get a bank card. And alhamdulillah, when you have that, you will know the equity, or you will know the value of money. You will know the value of money. You will know not to spend more than what you have. You will not be in immense, insane debt. And who is this helping out if you're not in like $200,000 debt, if you're in $100,000 debt, like collectively in terms of everything? Imagine you just got out of college, okay? You didn't pay off your student loans. You have your student loans, you have your credit card bills, and on top of that, you're still spending because you're going to go out with your friends, you're going to go have lunch maybe, you're going to go shopping maybe, and you don't have the money to pay for all these bills. What are you doing? You don't have the money to freaking shop till you drop. Majority of you. You guys don't have the money for that. You want to treat yourselves? That's fine. No one's telling you not to. You want to treat yourself? There should be a limitation to that. It could be, just saying an example, right? It could be a birthday, Maybe it could be, I don't know, it could be a holiday, maybe 2 or 3 times out of the year, keep you going and stuff. Give you a little fuel so you have excitement in your lives, But a lot of you don't have the money to pay it off. These loans, these bills, ugh. I don't know how some of you do it. I get anxiety. Looking at family members' bills or looking at other people's bills, I get anxiety, and I'm like, shoot me. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, oh my goodness. Had we just prepared from before? You should be teaching your kids this. Maybe telling them once, twice, 3 times, 4 times should at least lay some sort of foundation within them. Because I remember my parents scared the crap out of me when they told me, whatever you do in life, don't open up an American Express. Don't do it. Don't open up an American Express card. They put that fear into me so many times. I had by the time I was not even, I think I was 16 or 17, I believe. And it was that time when everybody was giving out credit cards, right? All the financial institutions. And I received a $35,000 credit limit from AMX and a $10,000, I believe, from Chase. I kid you not. People at that time, majority of the people I've seen throughout life after that, especially in the financial industry, a lot of people have basic $300 to $1,500 credit card limits. By the time I was 17, because of my household income at that time, I was offered a tremendous amount of money, which I didn't even need. But thank God my parents scared the crap out of me. At least for the AMX card. And I didn't open up the AMX card. So these are things that your parents should know in order for them to teach that to you. Whether you use it or not to your benefit. But if they don't even know it themselves, how are they going to teach you? This was a magnificent example at one point of life that I came across, and it was, what is it called? It was that, how are you going to teach somebody to be a billionaire if you're not a billionaire? Or rather, I think I told this, this is terrible, I think I told my dad this sometime. I'm like, Dad, how are you going to teach me how to be a billionaire if you yourself are not a billionaire? Millionaires don't count. Okay, I'm not talking about Dad in that context or my mom, but I'm talking about billionaires. I'm talking about proper billionaires. Which I really think, actually, at the end of the day, I laugh so much, I'm like, well, if money could buy power, why the hell didn't freaking Sergey Brin or one of the other co-founder of Google go ahead and opt to become president? Because I sure as hell would have freaking voted for them. They created something which was amazing, incredible. Google. I would have voted for them. Fortunately, they don't want that. They don't want that power. You understand? I don't even know if anybody would have thought about voting for them, but, just a heads up, in the future, maybe. Mr. Brin, if you ever come across this, please do make me one of your cabinet members. So, anyhow, long story short, we must instill these teachings to everyone. The usury is no good. It's no good. Unfortunately, the credit card companies will hate me. I can't even tell you, because I'm not an advert for them. I'm not rooting for American Express. I'm not rooting for any other institution that, basically is advocating for interest. No. Because God was against that. And now more than ever I can see that. I can see why now. Hadn't I been able to see it earlier, I can see why now. Okay, and as for, so what if you need to have something done, and do you really need a house? Like, I'm just saying, it's a really stupid question. I live in a house, so I know that living in a house is actually probably, honestly, better than living in anywhere else, to be honest, living in your own house. But even then, do you really need it at that moment? Perhaps, see? Do you really need it at that very moment? I've lived in apartments. When I was on my own, I've lived in apartments. I've had 3-bedroom apartments. I've lived in just recently, not too recent, but recent enough. I came out of living in a massive what's it called? A massive apartment, which is really cool. When I was with anyhow. And prior to that, when I lived on my own, I was living in a 3-bedroom and a 2-bedroom. I've always lived when I did on my own, live in an apartment, like for half the year I was living on my own, and the other half I was up with family, and the other portion of it, whatever portion was that, 3-4 months out of the year I was traveling. So I've lived in an apartment too, and I feel like it was just as fine as living in a house. What does a human being really need? They need a place to sleep, a place to eat, a place to toiletry, right? It's the same thing. Of course, now you might have noisy neighbors and stuff, like living in an apartment building, but other than that, you're all living in, and you're doing all the same things. What do you need in life anyways? I'm just saying, this is an example, excuse me. Bismillah. Here's another example. When when I was working on a particular place of business, I had told one of my business partners, I was like, back in the days, right? I told one of my business partners, all we really need is just a place. And once we have a place, at that point we can decorate it to our own ability. What does that mean? You can still make an apartment look like it looks like a $5 million apartment. In that very same space, you can make it look like it's not even worth $500 worth of living rent. It all just depends on how you plan and put things together. You don't have to buy a dining set, which, costs $2 million. Or sorry, not $2 million. Very funny. $200,000. You might find something that's, just as beautiful, maybe, or maybe it's not made out of the same wood, I don't know. But in the sense that you might find something that's visually similar to it in, I don't know. I can't say $200, but at least I can say maybe visually as pleasing as $2,000. And even if you don't have a budget for $2,000, it's fine. Maybe $700. Okay? And that $700, okay, fine. $2,000 compared to that $200,000 dining set is huge money saved, maybe. And on top of that, it's huge idiocracy saved. I'm just saying. I really still can't to this day understand, because I hear stories all the time from a family member. I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to risk their business. I hear stories all the time of the affluent and the wealthy, the very affluent and the wealthy, and I hear, are people insane? I'm like, you have all this money, that's great, and I see it too, and I'm like, I've been raised in it too, in a way, in a certain way. I've seen both sides in my life, alhamdulillah, and I've seen the affluent, the rich, and the poor. Not really the poor, but whatever, in that sense. And I don't understand how someone could go ahead and spend so much on a particular thing, which, like that example of the table unit, right? And I'm like, how can you spend, what is that made out of? $200,000? That's not the particular story that I had heard, but I'm like, just supposedly say that it's a piece of furniture and it has gold or something on it. How can you pay $200,000 for something like that? It just doesn't hit me. I don't know. I also wouldn't buy something for don't get me wrong, I also wouldn't buy something for $20. But I feel like something in between is more of a modest approach. And not only is it the most modest approach, it's the most beneficial approach of all to you. I'm still not saying something between $20 and $200,000 middle way. It's still a lot of money. You have to use your logic. You really have to use your logic. Because at the end of the day, okay, temptations are such, the temptation to want to buy that $200,000 dining set or something, right? I'm just saying, if there is somebody out there that thinks as crazy as that to do something like that, what happens? Experiment with something like this. What happens if you see that dining table, or if you see that dress, maybe that $6,000 dress? There was one time that I wanted to I get invited to an award show, and I wanted to go to that award show because I was behind in the process for it, and I was thinking, oh my god, it's such a huge award show. It's freaking huge. I'm like, I have to wear a really exquisite gown. Not explicit, exquisite. So I saw something and I was like, oh my god, this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful to my eyes, and it was made out of real ostrich feathers and Swarovski crystals, and it was worth how much? $6,000. And I was so ready to buy that. I didn't care how I was going to get it. I don't know, if that was my month's salary, whatever. Or I have no idea, but I was going to get it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get it because I have to attend the award show. I was like, I was thinking I was not going to attend the award show anyways. I didn't end up attending the award show later on. But then I also didn't end up buying the dress because I was like, forget it. I was like, I'm not going to spend $6,000 on this dress. I know this dress is very beautiful. It'd make me look like a mermaid. Out of like the most beautiful oceans in the world, or the most beautiful vacation spots in the world, I'd look like a walking, crystal blue ocean. I mean, not like by my features, but what I meant to say by the dress. But what happened when I didn't get it? I didn't get it. Doesn't mean that I can't get it on later on in life. Maybe I can, but is it worth anything to me? No. How is it not worth anything to me? Because it was a temptation. It only lasts for so long. So that temptation for that dress that I wanted, it was a temptation at the time. Now, I don't even give a, excuse my French, I don't even give a crap about it. I don't care. You can show it to me and I'll just be like, blah, it's a Swarovski, but there's also beads on it. I could just throw that at home. Find me a bunch of ostrich, blue and white feathers. I'll make that dress at home. I'll pay myself $6,000 in a salary to make a dress like that. You know what I mean? Or like, maybe even like if I was to get the dining table of that sort, I'd just be like, yo, just take me to a lumber place. Let's do a summer do-it-yourself project. Let's cut those lumbers down and get some Home Depot paint or something and intricately work on it. So back in the days, it was very different for me. It was very different for me. Not too different, actually, to be honest. I don't think I would have turned out this way if it was too different internally, but in the sense that temptations only last so long. And what does the human being really need? Essentially, let's just say if I was reading something about interim camps or something. I never even knew such a thing like this existed in United States of America. That the Japanese were all gathered up after the World War, whichever one that was, right? I guess it was 2. I feel it feels unbelievable to hear such a thing, that the Japanese people were taken out and they were put into camps because they didn't know who had I guess who had done what or whatever in that sense, and they just took all the Japanese out and they started putting them in camps. And I thought I never knew that there was such a Japanese movement at all. I'm so saddened to hear this. I'm really like I can't express my grief over it because I don't know. So suppose, right, if such a thing like that were to occur today, just imagine, doesn't matter what race you are, doesn't matter what religion you are, doesn't matter where, whatever it is, right? Just imagine if people were to storm into your homes and they were to tell you you only have 5 minutes to get out of the house. That's it. 5 minutes. What would you take with you? Should I take my soap? You would take the most important things in the world you need. You will leave every other thing behind, which is just stuff. As George Carlin says it best, it's just stuff, right? You wouldn't take your stuff, you take what you need. I never thought about it back in the days, but sure as heck, now that I think about it, I take soap. I take a lot of soap. Because in my private time, when I'm in the shower, that's the only time that I'm going to be able to probably look cleaner than everybody else. Look a little better, just saying. So what are essential things that as a human being needs in order for them to survive anywhere, right? We're not talking about survival of the fittest, but we're just talking about surviving. I suppose soap. I suppose water. I suppose, toothbrush, hopefully, for some of you, a lot of you, toothbrush, toothpaste, pajamas. I need pajamas. Pajamas, clothes, some sort of clothes, and of course the IDs and stuff, and of course most of you can't live without your phones nowadays, so phones, and I take my books. What do I mean? I take my Quran, obviously, and what do you need to survive? I mean, honestly, it's really hard because each person varies, but when you have the basic essentials for anyone to live anywhere in the world, from a shelter to a, like a castle of some sort, or some huge mansion or something of that sort, you all kind of need the same things. You need a bed to sleep on. You need toiletry, like I said. You need food. You need water. Okay. And just minimal things. It's almost like when a man goes over, when a man takes a flight and stuff, the reason why he has that little trolley and that's all he really needs, that's exactly how much all of us in the world really need in order for us to survive. Even for the woman. You don't need your nail polish. You don't need your hair straighteners, as sad as this is. Yeah, maybe your makeup. That might be a little bit more. Right? You can carry that in a small hand purse or something of that sort. But that's all we really need to survive. And I know I'm not supposed to be talking as if I'm a minimalist, right? I'm not a minimalist. Or I'm not even trying to tell you to be like survival of the fittest, right? I'm not even telling you to be like someone who, what are those people called that travel from, they go around the world and then, or like Airbnb or something of that sort. They're on like one day they're on some European rail line and the next they're probably in India on a European rail line, just backpacking. That's what it's called, backpacking across the world, But it's really almost like that. If you want to live like you're just technically, because back in the days, you probably tented across the world. Nowadays, it's called backpacking. Unless they change the lingo, right? No one's telling you to be a tree hugger. No one's telling you to be a backpacker. We're just really telling you to wake up. I'm telling you to wake up. Because this is reality. The quicker you understand this, the quicker you're able to live your life clean, in a neat and clean manner, in a less stressful manner, and in the best manner that you can live in. How do I say this? It's very simple. Hold on. House. You have a house, and I used this example before. Okay, you have a house. And just like I said before about the apartment, you can make it look like a very, that same place, that same cubicle you have, like that square, rectangle, whatever it is that you have. You can make it very beautiful by setting a budget. Doesn't really have to be how much exquisite and grandeur you spend on it or how much less you spend on it. Of course, don't be cheap, guys, too, Don't be cheap. Go according to your budget, but don't be cheap. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't, what's it called? Don't say that don't put your hands up and say you have nothing. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, don't go ahead and empty out your pockets. Okay. So, some of you have that problem. Not some. It's very rare. I came across somebody in my life like that and I was like, astaghfirullah. I was like, I don't know, man. What's it called? Here God is being so graceful, is giving you 10 times the reward, and here you don't even want to spend 50 cents in charity. Astaghfirullah. I laugh only because I've experienced it, and I laugh because it is also sad. And I really prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that person's heart gets opened up, and then they start to realize that there is no picking and choosing. There is priority in terms of when you give charity, There is priority, but if you're in the moment to give it and you're able to, do it, because guess what? Tomorrow's never guaranteed for anybody. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. If you have the ability to help out people, go ahead and do it. Because that could be the very well last thing that you did. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being merciful enough to keep you alive for another day, maybe another month, maybe another week, maybe another year, maybe a decade, 2 decades, just for Him to see what you are capable of. What you're going to do. How far you're going to go. How far are you going to go walking like Scrooge, from those Christmas stories? How far are you going to go? How far are you going to go without helping somebody? How far are you going to go with keeping everything to yourself? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing you, folks. Wake up. He's testing you. And in this book is everything that you need as a guidance to you. It is everything for you to live the most perfect life in this dunya. The bestest, or to try to lead the most, you can say, at least in your attempt. And if we're just living in those times where it just happens to be like that, and we're nearing up on the hour, I'm just saying in general, if we're nearing up on the hour, then times are going to get more brutal again, right? I can't say like the medieval times, please, I hope we're not that. I mean, we're very medieval, we're literally medieval times, not by class action sword fighting, but we're in the medieval times by using our tongues as a sword. That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is. Our tongues have become our swords. So for you Christian brothers and sisters, you Muslim brothers and sisters, you brothers and sisters of any faith, realize that we might not be living in the medieval times in where we used to fight with swords, but we are fighting with our tongues as if they are swords, and this is not correct. No one wins. Because you end up losing those whom you love too. Whereas instead of fighting, instead of disputing, you should be working together to give knowledge. You should be picking up the book. That book. Your books. Your books. You want a sword? You want a contraband? You don't need a physical sword. You don't need a physical contraband. Your book is your sword, and your book is your shield. Your books. And the funniest thing of all is, guess what? Your books will guide you to the truth. You ever questioned all these people whom are fighting in wars, and, even those folks that fought these wars in the medieval times and all these things, and prior to that, you ever question if these people ever questioned the people that would give them commands? Like, what are you guys doing this for? Like, for what? We should be living in peace. You ever wonder why, even if somebody lives in peace, there's still someone out to ruin their peace? Even if they're a good person, but there's always somebody out there that has to be like a villain, and just, kind of like how in this country people were just living, and then all of a sudden, we had this turbulent time where we're like Thanksgiving Day, right? It's right around the corner. Perfect example. You ever wonder what happened? The Native Americans were living. Then Christopher Columbus, and then, of course, the Pilgrims came on, and they were living here. So the Pilgrims and the Native Americans were living together. They were in peace. They were being taught. They were teaching each other. What happened? What exactly happened that disturbed your peace? There has to be some other force, some other thing, apart from also humans. Because humans also can be in goodness with each other. We can teach each other. We can live, we can coexist. But why is it that sometimes when people are in peace, all of a sudden, living together, right? There's something terrible that happens collectively to them and disturbs their peace. Because you forget. And if you are a Muslim, you forget yourselves. Most of you forget yourselves. I don't know if to the extent of Christians, if you really focus on the spiritual war part, or if any of you really focus on that, whether it's you're Hindu and you believe in the the era of Kali Yuga and all these things, and if you really believe in your scriptures and what they tell you, I don't know to what extent you believe in that there is a spiritual war between mankind and with something else. It is that thing that's disturbing our peace, and for us to be how we truly were, to come towards the goodness. There is a story behind Cain and Abel, Habil and Kabil, right? And for the proper story, if you want it proper story, the Quran will identify that for you. But it all starts off even before Cain and Abel. It all started off in Jannah, in heaven. Remember, you are fighting. You're fighting. Ow. You are fighting with Iblis and Shayateen. That is what you are fighting with. You're not fighting with human to human. You're not. You're fighting with Iblis, Shayateen, and the ego within to understand this. And if you don't have the ilm, that is what makes you poor. That's what makes you very poor. You need the ilm. This is what makes you wealthy. Okay. Anyhow. You can make your $1 million apartments, literally, or your $1 million homes. Nobody's stopping you. But we're just reminding you that there's a smarter way to do it. Which is to listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what He says. Spend from what you have been given. If there's something more that you want, be in goodness, be patient, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's not that it's impossible that it won't be done. It won't be done like how Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam had, but, or even the generations prior to, but it will be something in today's time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be able to perhaps provide for you. He gives you that which is the best for you. If you can't handle it, in a way, He's saving you too. But I can't handle it. Like, I get anxiety. I get anxiety from, people that I used to have a lot of people. I used to have a lot of connections and attention and all these things, and I used to get anxiety from that. I can't even imagine if I had, just saying billionaire. I'm not talking about millionaire. Right? If I had billionaire type of wealth, I'd probably get a heart attack and just die. Like all those people, that win a lottery. Some of them. Have you ever heard those articles where, have you ever have you ever read those articles where they talk about, somebody winning the lottery and then they get a heart attack and they just die? It's happened a couple times, at least in in the world. I've read articles on this. People don't know what to do. Money is such, guys. So, pay attention to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, and I'm out. I'm going to start doing a personal vlog. I don't know. Allah Hafiz. Peace be upon you.